Welcome, everybody, to Negotiate This. My name is Nick Segal, and today I got a fantastic guest that I will introduce in a moment. The topic today is comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, Mark McLaughlin, who you'll meet in a moment, when Mark shared, he wrote this on the bottom of one of his emails. It was like, positive, positive, do this, we got this, we're going to make this thing work. And it just said, comfortable being uncomfortable. And that jumped off the page to me. And I thought, wow, that is a consciousness that I do my best to live. Think about anybody, anything you've ever gone for. There are those moments of discomfort and that reticence to move forward. And so today we are going to explore techniques, tools, mindsets, ideas, ways that we can assist ourselves to stay in that place of expansion and through that discomfort. So Mark McLaughlin, number one, I'm thrilled that you're here. And I just want to say a couple of things. Now, what you'll get to know about Mark is Mark's pretty cut and dry. Okay. Mark is, those of you who don't know him, he's like, bam, 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 bam. All right. And so there's not a lot of warm and fuzzy with Mark that I've come to know. But I know that there's somewhere in there, maybe we'll even explore it today, we'll see. But Mark and I got together when we took the long walk in San Francisco. And I had Partners Trust, and Mark was with Pacific Union, and he had created this incredible company out of the ashes and said, maybe there's an opportunity to work together. And I loved everything that I heard, but the things that I loved about Mark that I see to this day, not only his business acumen, not only his ability to work through an issue and get to a strategy and execute on that strategy. But the thing that when I got to trust you, Mark, was when at one point you said to me, if I say I'll do it, I will do it. And again and again and again, you have demonstrated that. And we have never memorialized all of the nuances of our deals, but we've had conversations and back and forth. If I said I'd do that, I will do that. And that to me is the greatest compliment. That goes back to the consciousness of handshake and that our word is our bond. So I welcome you to the program. And I want to kick things off. Where did you get that phrase, comfortable being uncomfortable?
I'm not sure exactly where it came from, Nick, but it was somewhere in the Great Recession where we were never thinking there would be another good day in our lives. And you just kind of wake up one day and you say, okay, I'm comfortable with this, so let's get on with it. You know, and but it's been a decade or so, maybe a little bit more, but it all comes from, you know, perspective and background and when and how have each of us overcome other obstacles in our lives, be they business, be they personal, be they emotional, you know, whatever they might be. We've all gotten over them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have, but some with you know, bloodied and beaten, and some, you know, working through it more gracefully. You do this very gracefully. I look at our current reality. No one saw this pandemic coming. How many emails of support and acknowledgement and strategy have you put forth? What are we in, day 60, 65?
I'm not counting, but it's 65.
Oh, if you were.
Yeah.
And each and every day you are showing up in such a way that if you don't get inspired reading your information, because it's got facts, it's got content, it's got mindset, and it's also got an underlying element of encouragement that we are in this together and we're going to get through this together. That's not concept. That's hard living to get to that point. And so where you say you're a C student, right? Self-admitted C student as a kid?
On a good day.
On a good day. So as a kid, you're a C student, you're seeing B students and A students, and they're getting certain accolades, you're not getting those. How do you deal with that? Do you see yourself in comparison to others as a kid?
Well,
from that perspective?
Before I answer that, I want to go back to one statement. And you said I do this with a sense of calm and grace, but it's a little bit like the duck going across the pond. Everything looks pretty good up top, and it's a shit show down below. Right? So,
I've been in the shit show with you. I understand.
It's not exactly, all bubbles, if you will.
Yeah, but great leaders don't show you the paddling feet under the water, right?
So I'm an athlete at the core, and since I was a young kid, and competitive sports is really what kept me in school. If I didn't have a C average, they would throw me out of school once you got to high school and to college. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really ever compete in the classroom. I'll come back to, in hindsight, why that might have been. But I didn't really compete in the classroom, so I wasn't looking for those accolades. My oldest sister is the perfect student, A student, all of the above. So my source of confidence, achievement, and motivation was all on the athletic field.
Mm. Mm. And so you just channeled what you weren't into what you were good at.
Yeah, for sure. And I joke a lot that, I haven't read a book since college. I'm not sure I read them all then either. But I found out when my son, who's now 27, was 2 years old, and I went to read him a book out loud, like a Dick and Jane book, and I couldn't do it. Mm. And I learned then, which was 26 or 24 years ago, that I'm dyslexic. And so reading was a source of incredible challenge. Mm. And so you do workarounds for everything in life, right? If in golf you don't have a great approach shot, you do a work around it, right? In everything you have to do that. And so in school, I obviously worked around it and just got by so that I could compete.
Mm. And so was there an acceptance with that? You didn't realize at the time you were dyslexic. So
no, not at all.
I don't think there was something wrong with you from that perspective?
No, but I don't think teachers really recognize that stuff then. That kid's just a slow learner. Yeah. I learned a tremendous amount from my dad, just sitting around the kitchen table, who was with Xerox at the time, and just sitting around the kitchen table, listening to stories. I absorbed all kinds of stuff just from my elbows sitting on the table. And so, your education and your academics, from my perspective, are complementary.
Right, but you said something great. You said, I don't let my academics stand in the way of my education.
Right.
So unpack that a little bit for me. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about the current state that we're in right now. I have 2 daughters that are still in college. They're not meant to be home here with me. They're not getting an education being home here with me, and they're barely doing their academics. The education that we all go through is what's called, you could call it growing up. It's being out at the college campus, living on your own, making decisions, making mistakes, falling off the porch, when you're not supposed to fall off the porch, all those things that are hazards to your life. And that's an education. An education is having to work while you're going to school, having to balance athletics, academics, a job. That's an education, right? That's something that is not in a book. And getting ready for the Great Recession and getting ready for the COVID-19 outbreak, there's not an MBA program in the world that would prepare you for that. Right? We all reflect back on our previous experiences and say, okay, what did I do then? And you almost go into, it's like you almost go into this automation. Let's react. Let's go.
Yeah. So where did you get to that point? Is there a catalytic event when you were a kid? I mean, you moved a lot, right? Your dad's a Xerox salesman. So you moved how many times as a kid?
8.
8. So that's discomfort in and of itself. I mean, meeting new kids, making new friends, letting go of the old friends, not knowing. I mean, after number 6, right? So share the story about your dad would sit you down with your sisters and at the living room before the move was going to be announced.
Yeah. So I have 3 sisters. We're all just a couple of years apart. And every time we got called into the living room, we got a whole bottle of Coke. We knew we were moving because we were never allowed to have a whole bottle of Coke. We were always encouraged to split one. And about the 3rd time we got the third bottle of Coke, we said, okay, we don't need the story, just tell us when. So yeah, and for me, and my sisters handled it differently. For me, every time I showed up in a new place, if there was a sports team to play on, I had to leave it all out there on the field on the first day because you had to get noticed. right? And if you don't leave it all out in the field, then you may not get invited back to practice the next day.
Well, it's very different if you're a girl versus a boy at that age, right? Because boys have that outlet of athletics, and you're immediately cool if you're good, right? Everyone wants you on your team. There's immediate acceptance, and so you can play to that. But was there any sort of, and for girls, I don't know how they find, unless they had sports or what they would do. I can't speak to it. But as a kid, I got to imagine there's something very unsettling. You talk about comfortable, being comfortable in discomfort and uncomfortableness. How do you deal with that as a kid? I mean, I had my own experiences as a kid that were earth shattering, but how did you deal with that? How did you make peace with that?
Well, you certainly didn't get attached to your past.
Mm-hmm.
Monique always says, Mark, you never reflect on the past. And I rarely do. I have in this COVID thing because I have reflected a lot on the Great Recession and the things that we did. But, I pretty much live every day for tomorrow and make absolutely the best of today and get ready for tomorrow. And, being uncomfortable is different for everybody. Being uncomfortable for me is very different than being uncomfortable for you. Right. And if you have an idea that you want to do something and you never do it, you're never going to be uncomfortable doing it. Right. And so it's like the example I shared with you yesterday is that I think I want to run a marathon. Not me, but that's a thought. Maybe that's an uncomfortable thought, but you've never felt discomfort unless you've tried to run a marathon and finished it. It doesn't matter what time you come in. It doesn't matter how fast you run it. It's going to be uncomfortable, but you know that there is a finish line and there will be another meal and there will be rest. And so everybody has to calibrate their risk tolerance and their comfort level by themselves. And as an athlete, I was always trained by my coaches to leave it all on the field. And eventually I became a team captain. And then I don't know if any of you have watched the recent Michael Jordan series, but I found
watched it all. Yeah.
Is that he was a bulldog in the locker room. But you know what? As soon as you stepped up to his level, he would lay off. And, so he was a bit of a player coach and obviously did fairly well for a young guy from North Carolina.
Yeah, it worked out for him.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's all he and I have in common is we're both starting from North Carolina.
Yeah, I've never seen you shoot a basketball, so I can't speak to that. So this idea that you move around a lot as a kid and you formulate a strategy, right? You have a great quote. I can make 1,000 decisions a day with the facts. With the story, I can't do much. How do you get to that critical thinking mindset? That's a process, is it not?
It probably was a process getting to that. But as the organizations that I've led get bigger and more complex, the storytelling just is exhausting, and you eventually have to go back to the scoreboard that tells you what the score is between the first and second quarter. Right. And at the end of the game approaches, are we going to win or not? And the scoreboards don't have a lot of gray area in them. They are pretty straight down the middle. One team's winning, one team's losing. And, back when we first acquired Pacific Union, we had 5 or 6 different regions, and in some of them we were growing our market share, and some of them we were shrinking our market share. And so we really quickly just decided that, hey, if we're not growing market share, all we're really doing is going out of business slowly, right? Because if somebody else is growing through us, then they're taking our share. And so, Patrick and Brent and I and Pam and, everybody in Northern California, we put our heads down and focused on the vision and focused on the path forward. And measured it by the numbers. And third and fourth and fifth quarter that we hit them, it's like we don't need to worry about the competition if we're running our program successfully. We can eliminate that noise and just stick to the facts.
So I love that, and I've seen you demonstrate that. I've been in meetings with you where you play exactly to that. But that idea of eliminating the noise of the competition. I mean, so many realtors compare to any walk of life, right? We look at our station and we go, yeah, but they're doing it that way and they're doing it that way. And why aren't I getting that success? How would you advise someone who's in that comparison kind of mindset using facts to help them formulate a plan that serves them better?
Well, first they have to have that plan, right? They absolutely have to have that plan. And working a plan is a lot easier than not. And one of the analogies that I've always used about managing noise, and I think you and I talked about this over the weekend, was in any given paragraph, there's 30 words. There's really only 8 that matter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you just scan a paragraph and pick out 8 words, you got it. The rest could be called noise. So lots of the news that we see every day, it can be very, very distracting. And sometimes we can wrap ourselves in that distraction and it'll consume our day, our month, our week, our year, whatever. But if we go back and focus on what's really important in the relationships that I'm managing in my business and what's really important in my business, then, you know, breakthroughs are so possible, you know.
Right.
And, the discomfort of taking risk and ignoring what the competition is doing or saying and pursuing in pursuit of your path has tremendous rewards on the other side.
Yeah, and I guess if I'm someone who has a thought of a plan, right? It starts with a thought and then you got to act on it. And I really want it, and I've listened to enough people talking about how they did it, and I'm going, yeah, I could grab that piece and I can grab that piece, and I'm going to assemble my plan. But if I'm scared to then act on that plan, I'm right back to paralysis, right? How do I take that first step? What was the first thing that you did where you said, screw it, I got to do this for me. I can't worry about what anyone else thinks. Was there one of those moments that come present for you and what was your process to get through that?
So when I was at Cal, I played 2 sports. One was soccer and one was lacrosse. And we weren't allowed in the gym, that the baseball, football, basketball. We had to go to a gym in Alameda, which was about a 20-minute drive for us. And on the way back from the gym, sort of counterintuitive, we would always stop at the same dive bar. And a bunch of us were sitting around the table saying, isn't this just wrong that we have to drive this far? Why don't we start a gym in Berkeley? And on the second pitcher of beer, we all decided, hey, let's start a gym in Berkeley.
What became a good idea became a great idea, right?
Exactly.
We're geniuses now, okay? Let's just get there.
On cue. So there were 4 of us that said, yeah, we're going to start a gym in Berkeley. And I think one of the things about winning is finishing, okay? Just finishing. And most people are not finishers. So the 4 of us sat around there with that great idea. We took good and made it great. But only one executed. Only one person opened the gym. You know, and that was me. And I opened it in my last year at school, you know, so I was still in school. And it became a raging success. I opened another one in Montclair, which is right where our office is. It happened, my second gym happens to be in the exact office that Pam Hoffman office is in, the exact space.
Okay.
When I went back there after buying the unit, I'm like, oh my God, this was my fitness center. And then I opened a third one in San Jose, and it was a horrible mistake. And it almost cost us the business. But from the time at the Kingfish, this bar in Berkeley, to getting the first one open, to getting the second one open, and then making a mistake, that learning process comes from, number 1, being a finisher, and number 2, taking risk and being comfortable with it. You know, I could tell a very similar story to the time that I decided to take a run at buying Pacific Union. And this is in the first quarter of 2009. And, you know, I did all my research and I put in an offer, and there's just total silence. And all of a sudden the phone rings one day, and it's the CEO of the seller saying, I have a couple questions for you. And I answered the questions, and he said, okay, well, if you can change this one thing, you know, it's your deal. And I said, oh my God, now what am I going to do? It's like, you know, the dog chasing the parked car.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's like, I was terrified. That's where I got the expression that I wake up terrified every day, is that for the 90 days leading up to the close, every other day I would wake up with either this is the greatest thing that's ever going to happen in my life, or this is the dumbest decision I'll ever make. And thank God I woke up on the good day, and we closed. But, you know, it's a matter of finishing, you know, whether it's the marathon, whether it's whatever you're doing in your life, it's only uncomfortable when you don't finish, because you get into that gray area where you don't know if you can turn around and go back, or you don't know if you should keep driving forward. But
yeah,
inside, you got to keep driving.
Yeah, it's like I've heard the expression 100%'s a breeze and 99's a bitch. You know, it's not coming through it. So you've developed two winning gyms, and what was the difference with the third gym? Why did that not have the same success?
It's interesting. You get to a point where maybe this is where I first started to make decisions based on facts. Is that we did a demographic analysis of Berkeley and Montclair, and then we went out to a service and said, give me 15 more cities in the San Francisco Bay Area that have these exact same or better demographics. And we found one down in Los Gatos. It was the absolute right neighborhood, and I picked the absolute wrong location. And opened it and closed it in 9 months and lost $250,000 at the age of 23. And that was horrible. But it was I did the right thing by leaning into the facts, and I did the wrong thing in real estate, which is location, location, location.
Mm. Mm.
So,
yeah. So I would imagine every location for Pacific Union learned that lesson. Yes.
Yeah. You've seen us open and close a few.
I indeed have. So how do you deal with the losing? We both agree we don't like it. How quickly can you get to the learning when it doesn't go the way you want
to? That's what losing is about. It's about learning. Yeah. And not blaming anybody else. I think blame is, I put blame in the same category as anger. Mm-hmm. And they're both very destructive emotions. Yeah. And generally speaking, the answer is within. Is that, one of my great examples in life of anger and blame is I was driving my car with my bike on the roof, and I pulled into a parking space and just heard this metal ripping everywhere, and I just shouted, was looking for someone to blame. It's like, who the hell put that ceiling there? Well,
it materialized out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And we've all done stuff like that, right? And it's nobody's fault but my own, right? And so most of our mistakes are that way in life.
Mm-hmm. And how would you play the pivot into learning? So you deal in facts, right? So you have these set of facts, you execute on a strategy, and then new information comes in. How do you deal with that pivot, and how quickly do you act on it? And I understand it's a broad-based question, but how do you play the pivot to your advantage?
Well, I think it depends on the strength of the new data, the strength of the new, whatever the phenomena is, and how are we going to react to it. Clearly, the Great Recession and COVID, those are for real. And we all had to pivot, if you will, or course correct. I wrote an article about, course correction, and, we've all gone through it now. And usually the faster you do it, the better it's going to be. The example in that is that, if you have to catch a falling knife, the faster you catch it, the less it's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, take action. It comes back to taking action. I think I should do this. My instincts are, I should do this. Well, have the confidence to execute on the instincts. That's, the three things I look for in people is, are they a competitor? Mm-hmm. Tell me about their instincts, and do they have the confidence to execute on those two threads? Mm-hmm. Those are important things.
Yeah. And at what point did you start trusting your instincts?
After many mistakes. Mm. And I have a higher risk tolerance than most. And that's probably a double-edged sword. I won't take as many risks now. Like when I started the gym, I didn't have a family. I didn't have a mortgage. My budget was, hot dogs and cold beers. It was pretty simple. But now raising 3 kids, you dial it back a little bit. I ski differently now than I used to. I'm no longer crazy. I'm not trying to keep up with my kids. I can remember skiing as a family where I'd be at the bottom of the hill and waiting for my parents. I'm like, God, they're slow. Why is it I always have to wait for them? Now when I go skiing with my kids, they're standing at the bottom of the hill saying, where's Dad? God, he's slow.
Right.
So you dial back your risk as you age, but I don't think that is the same thing as executing on your instincts and taking and creating momentum in your life.
Mm-hmm. And so I would let me gut check this. A safe haven, like a home base. If you're analyzing a situation, you've got the facts coming in. what are the, we'll call it top 2 or 3 things that you rely on internally about yourself, heart, mind, gut, all of it, that walk with you into every single situation where risk could possibly be involved?
Well, in the last 15 to 20 years, it's been, how am I going to be able to convince the team of people that I need to be successful to believe in the vision?
Mm.
And as you know, we have always operated on a 3 to 5 year outlook. And it's one thing for me to have that outlook and come down from the mountain with the, with the vision. But unless I get our leadership team together to beat it up, shape it, take good to great, and believe in it, I can't do it alone. It's just not, it's my role now as a coach. I'm not the athlete that scores the points, and so I have to have that incredible group of people around me, and clearly we do, so that's why we're successful. It's not, it hasn't, I need the team way more than the team needs me.
Right. And so that kind of collaborative mindset, right? Is, so if I'm a sole proprietor and I'm out there trying to forge my vision, what would you recommend me do to bring in more of a brain trust, so I'm just not myopically in a silo looking at something?
So I would do 2 things. First of all, I would put a bullseye on somebody's back. I would pick the person in the market that you want to outperform, whether that person is at Compass or at a different firm, because they could be the best person in your neighborhood and you're the 3rd best or something like that. But put a bullseye on someone's back, and your goal is to outperform that person. Then find an accountability partner. Find someone who you tell, hey, Nick, I want you to be, once a month, I want you and I to go to lunch. I want you to keep me accountable to my plan. My goal is to, outperform Ron Smith every day of the week, whatever it might be, in the backyard. And somebody's got to keep me accountable to that, because it's easy for us to say, I didn't get it done this month, but I'll get it done next month, right? New Year's resolutions, right? And that accountability partner becomes your scoreboard. It becomes a way for you to look yourself in the mirror, this time through your accountability partners as the lens, right? And say, how am I doing on that? How is it going? Because, everybody is running their own business in real estate. And sometimes you don't have 22 people on your team, or even 2 people on your team.
Right.
So 1 is a bullseye, and 2 is an accountability partner.
And then I think the 3rd would be to plaster on the wall, winning is finishing. And
Yeah.
then with each step along the way, say, did I finish this? What, when we break the long arc into the sum of its parts and each beat along the way, and just and do our best to hit those beats, that's a win, right? We don't get paid every single day in this trade, right? So how do we create, almost tricking the mind to say, I won, I got paid today,
Yep.
whatever that mindset is for someone.
Yep.
And so how does the emotion of a situation, or we'll call it either an emotion from an attachment perspective, something that you really want, how do you deal with the attachment to that outcome? How did you deal with the vision of the bullseyes out there, where Pacific Union is going to be the best company on God's green earth? How do you separate the attachment from the execution?
We never really talked about being the best, but the energy around what we did was, it sort of self-defined itself as extraordinary, mainly because of the people that we associated with. And every one of you have a competitive stripe. Every one of you would collaborate with the person in the office next to you to help them go from good to great. It's just the DNA of what we put together. And like every real estate professional wakes up every day or on the 1st of every year where the scoreboard says 0, right? We kind of do the same thing. And sure, we ended up being the 5th largest in the country, but it was never our goal. It just happened because we were relentless in our pursuit of market share and, executing to a standard of excellence. And when you do that as a team, the leverage from that is just uncontrollable.
Yeah. So it sounds like it wasn't the outer, it was more of the things you could control as opposed to what you couldn't control.
I think we are our finest competition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what if you're not a competitive person? Can you win? Can you be successful if you're not a competitive person?
Well, it depends on what success is.
Okay.
I mean, success for all of us is very different. Success. I get more energy out of seeing other people succeed in an environment that we create than I do anything else. And that's back to the team captain, team coach, whatever. It's, it's not important for me to score points anymore. It always seems to come back to athletics. But yeah, it depends on what does success mean to you? It's not the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so if I wanted to increase, let's say I think I need to be more competitive. I want X, Y, and Z, and it's beyond just an internal feeling of safety and security. I want to hit metrics. What would you do to encourage me to enhance my competitive nature, as it were?
Let me come back to the competitive nature.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years, I probably visited with 5 or 6 of our top performers about their goals.
Mm-hmm.
And you take the top 10 people in California in real estate, by all measures, they are successful. They have rung the bell.
Yep.
And what I've said to them is, what if success was redefining the quality of your life? What if success was building a team where you could actually take 30 days off and go and just polish your mind or yoga or whatever. So success does not have to be measured in units and dollars and percentages. It can absolutely be quality of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also very, very important for this group of people because of the 24/7 nature of the business.
Yeah.
Is that it can adversely impact relationships. It can adversely impact family. It can adversely impact health. There's so many different things that adversity can come from, that success does not have to be the fastest marathon, if you will.
Yeah.
But the competitive nature of maybe you compete with, maybe one person competes with the other as to how many vacation days they can log. I mean, you can do it any way you want, right? It just depends on where is it you're trying to get to. Make it steep, make the mountain steep. Take it one step at a time, just like your analogy with the arc. And lo and behold, you're going to get to the 9th month or the 9th unit, and you're going to say, "Wow, I am within reach. That is not a bridge too far. I can get there from here."
So
and then it just becomes so sweet. It just
right.
becomes so sweet.
What I'm hearing is it comes back to that initial intention of what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And then creating your own arc that gets you that, whatever that pot of gold, the finish, as it were, which I love. And someone commented, I think Rick Ojeda said, loves the idea of finishing as winning. So when I sold Partners Trust to Pacific Union, I know why we did that. And the intention was one, this is the smartest business move that we can do at the time. And the people that were all part of that equation, that was the best opportunity for them to advance their business, right? These are all the things that I was considering with my partners for the betterment of everybody, right? So we go into this thing, and so we have I'll call it a premeditated level of uncomfortableness that we're going to walk through, but we're eyes wide open. We see what we see, and we get it while we're doing this, right? But then the unintended consequences, Patrick talked about it the other day, the unintended consequences of something. You had a similar experience with selling Pacific Union, where the thought was, this is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And yet the unintended consequences of discomfort showed up the same way they did for me. Would you share a little bit about that experience that you went through in that?
Does horrible ring a bell?
Well, it's a shared experience. Yeah.
It's I think about it all the time, Nick, and today I wish I had handled it differently. And today I wish, well, first of all, the news broke before we were able to control it. That's a bummer. And the day that happened, it's like, okay, this is uncomfortable, but here we go. We're still going forward. And we had developed trust. And, the best statement I probably could have made, as opposed to explaining why we did it, was, can you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you trust me, Nick? The Patrick, Brent, Jessica, the Gary. Do you trust this team? Because if you trust this team, we're going to take you to a better spot. And now look where we are. The dust has settled, and that technology demo on Monday from Robert was like, why? I got a text in the middle of it from Peter Jonas. He said, if you had seen this as a boutique real estate company, what would you have done? And I said, I would have sold the company to Compass. It's like, we're in the right spot now. Like, I think most every hand on this call would go up. Are we in the right spot? Hell yes. But it took a while to get here, and it was very uncomfortable. And now the cadence is in place. I think people are enjoying the culture and the camaraderie and things that go with that.
Yeah. You're well versed on the premeditated stepping into uncomfortable situations. Is the strategy the same for you? Is that the same safe havens, that home base, the same when the unintended consequences, uncomfortableness comes up? Does your cadence change at all?
Well, my cadence has, I think, certainly changed in the last 70 days. As Patrick said one day, this is what you're cut out for. And, I do enjoy it. I think it was, enjoy is probably not the right word. I do thrive on it.
Yeah.
We're getting through this, and it was hard on a lot of people. Monique and I call home like, this is our safe haven. This is where you can let your hair out. And it's there are definitely days where we all need that, right? And then you gotta rinse and repeat, get back after it.
Yeah.
So it's lots of deep breaths, multiple laps around the track, and it's we're through it.
Yeah, and exercise plays a big part in coming into balance for you, does it not?
For sure. Yeah, I watched Pat Heller and Leslie Appleton Young yesterday. I rode my stationary bike for an hour and watched it, and first it was great, and second I checked the box of exercise, and third I got off the bike feeling so damn good. I'm like, let's go. It's and I have a trailhead about 4 blocks from my house, and I get on a mountain bike probably 4 days a week now, and just get out and smell the green air, and that's for my mental health as well. So it's good.
So we got a couple of questions that have been coming through. We talked about instincts. Cassandra says, in a world with a lot of inaccurate news and data reporting, what are your go-tos for reliable business news and stats related to real estate? Do you have any thoughts on that?
With respect to real estate, there's 2 places that I go. One is Ivy Zellman and Associates out of Cleveland, Ohio. She runs a fantastic research firm, and so does John Burns from John Burns Real Estate Consulting down in Irvine. And both are just so talented. They're not selling anything other than research, and they look at our world through both a macroeconomic lens as well as a regional real estate lens. And regional I'll refer to as Los Angeles County versus Orange County. They can act and behave differently, right? Mm-hmm. But that's where I go to for most of my source of information. And then Gary's finance team runs data, puts out data that gives us decision support that's fantastic. I mean, we are able to operate at a cadence that is probably better than most because of our decision support tools.
Mm-hmm. You know, we're in a heightened emotional state right now, and people are gripping in many, many respects. And facts can only take you so far. And from your perspective as a leader, what percentage of your time is spent dealing in the facts, and what percentage is spent in the emotional, reaching out and engaging with people where there's not an area of fact present, but just that emotional connection? How do you play into that right now?
I probably don't do enough of the latter. It's probably something that I could seriously improve. And in situations like this, when we are all stretched, tested, generally speaking, when we're sitting at our kitchen table, we think it's just me, you know, but in reality, it's everybody, right? And this one agent said to me once back in the Great Recession, you know, Mark, when the sky falls, everybody gets hit in the head. You know, and so that anxiety that we're feeling, that discomfort that we're feeling, that I'm exhausted and I'm getting nowhere feeling, pretty much we all have it. And just have empathy for that other person in that conversation, whether it be a client, a colleague, whatever it might be. And I should do more of picking up the phone and just calling people and saying, how you doing? So now I got something else to do.
Well, there's an element of vulnerability to it too, right? I mean, I know that in my days in management and as an owner of a company, people would look to me to say, help me through this.
Yeah.
And that's a tough spot to be in. And so it's a great, I would imagine, a stretch opportunity for you to play in that world too. I mean, I've seen you do it, so I know you've got the chops.
My phone, I did get the plan that includes outbound calls, so I should probably just do a little bit.
Yeah, I know, but that's, who knows, maybe that's the big stretch for you right now.
Yeah.
You know, we do what we're comfortable doing, and then in the discomfort, but the learning is so much greater, right?
Yeah.
There's a question that came forward. What are the qualities of Mark's business acumen and or personality that I admired as my boss? I remember every single person that has been there for me, that has supported me through challenging times. The greatest demonstration that Mark, you gave to me was when I was considering stepping away from the role that I was in as your direct partner and working with you. And one, the patience that you had with me, and the exploration that the space that you gave me to consider pros and cons, and the candor with which you gave me your honest assessment. There was no, hey, listen, there's an economic component here that could serve me well, meaning you. It was much more humanistic. And that's where I saw the friendship in who you are to me. And my life choices now are all about, I only want to work with the people that I trust implicitly, that demonstrate it every day, that aren't playing their agendas. And you never played any of the possible agendas that you had in service to your self-serving interest. You played it to me, and you were there for me in every step along, and your generosity and all of those dynamics. And I am your lifelong friend, whether you like it or want it or not, based on what you've demonstrated to me and the care you gave to me. And that to me is the best boss, the person that'll walk through fire and not ask you to go in front, but to say, just follow me. And you do that beautifully. And that's a rare quality. So to this.
Well, just let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's very gracious of you. Thank you. And I wish I hadn't been so nice, because I could really use you right now.
Oh, you're doing great. And yeah, as I've shared with you many times, whatever I can do to help, I'm right here. It's not about a salary. It's about
Yeah.
caring for everybody and who we are as human beings first, right? And I think that's
I think all of our people, we may not talk about our values, but I think we all demonstrate and walk our values every day as opposed to talk our values. And I think that, everybody on this phone call believes in one simple principle, and that is always do the right thing, even when no one's watching. And if we all just kind of live that way, there never should be regrets.
Yeah. Well, and it takes great trust to live from that space, right? I mean, so many would play to, well, how can I, what's the shortcut on this? There are no shortcuts to learning if you're really going to learn the lesson.
No, they're not. No,
So,
they're not. Yeah.
Any thoughts that you want to share about the future? What's the next risk for Mark McLaughlin at this point?
The next risk. Wow. Well, the next objective is to get to the finish line of this risk. And
I have no doubt about that.
I'm looking forward to that day. I don't know that the finish line is striped in the sand just yet, but I do think that we're going to have a tremendous run in the next 10 to sort of 18 months. And business is going to be different. Life is going to be different. Even if the restaurants sort of opened tonight, I'm not certain I'd be the first one through the door. I'm not certain that's the risk that I'm ready to take. But when will open houses come back? When will Caravan come back? Will it come back? Are we establishing the new normal in this time of adversity? And I think that I can't paint that picture right now, but I think it's shaping. I think it's like the Polaroid picture. It's starting to come through a little bit, right? And it will be different for sure.
Well, you're in charge. How would you shape it? What would you do based on what you know?
Well, I'm not really in charge.
Yeah, but if you were,
but it's,
how do you see what we're doing? And I don't need to it's not about politics.
Yeah.
What are the action steps that you would take? You are a leader. People look to you. Your voice is heard and resonates. What would you do?
So I would probably narrow focus a little bit. I'd probably become exceptional at 2 or 3 different things. And they may be, how do we create the competitive juice that we used to see in an open house that we can't do anymore? How do we do that? How do we get exposure to the brokerage community on new product that's coming out so that they can trickle it down to their clients to create that same inertia coming to the open house? I think those are 2 tools that are changed until there's a vaccine for sure, right? And I think the team in New York, the AI team is taking those steps, and maybe they've cranked that up right now. But I think getting 2 to 3 things extraordinarily well would be a great competitive advantage. Ultimately, what we want coming out of this is we want more than our fair share.
Yeah. Back to the competitive play. Sure, why not? And so I'm a seller. I'm gonna close with these 2 things. I'm a seller right now. I need to sell. What data points do I look to pick the right price for my house?
If you're a seller, your next 30 days to maybe 45 days is going to be more to your advantage than the following 90, because the comps will be in place, right? You will not have the ability to maneuver the comparables. So you either set the comps or you react to them, right? And so if I'm a seller, I get to market as fast as I can, and I would listen to my advisor about what they're seeing in terms of offers that are placed and rejected versus offers that are placed and made. You shared a story with me over the weekend about one of your buyers and the approach that he wanted to take, and obviously a very sophisticated guy. And the buyers that don't have to buy will outweigh the sellers. And then by the time we get 90 days worth of comps behind us, then there's going to be a relatively efficient market again, right? Because we'll have information to react to, we'll have inventory coming online. This gray area that we're in right now is there's still some emotion out there, but every indicator, every listening post that I have is that the sellers need to soften their expectations a little bit.
Yeah. And let's say, I know this market right now. I looked at Brentwood the other day, and from $2 to $3 million, there are 21 things on the market. One thing is active under contract, and 2 things have sold in the last 30 days. How do I pick a price point to put my house on the market in that kind of dynamic?
Yeah, well, I thought those stats you shared about the Brentwood market were, if I were a seller, I would be aggressive quickly,
Yeah.
Because the buyers are probably out there. The buyers are probably, what we don't know is when a buyer makes an offer and a seller says no, that's like the tree falling in the forest and nobody hears it, right?
Great point.
It's until we get the comp that we know what's going on. So if I were a seller in Brentwood on the stats you gave me, I would get aggressive. And we're trying to, like Brent Thompson and Ed Lynch and I just went through this on a office we closed in Mill Valley, and we're trying to sublease it. And the broker that's handling it just got back to us and said, hey, we're starting to see movement in the market, but there's 15 opportunities that are similar to yours.
Right.
And what do you think we did?
You got aggressive.
We lowered the price.
Yeah.
Because we want to be the first. We want the first look at every one of those possible tenants.
Well, there was I don't know who shared this with me. It was like, do you want to, in terms of pricing, do you want to hold the umbrella for everybody else, or do you want them to hold the umbrella for you? Meaning, where you price your property, if that's the threshold and you're down in here, all those buyers are looking to you, and that's how you win. So yes, if someone needs to sell, I absolutely concur. And if I'm a buyer right now and I'm not sure where the market's going, how long do I wait, or do I just write 10 offers on things and if I want to buy, get aggressive as all be?
So I'm a buyer right now. I'm closing on a condo tomorrow.
What part of town?
In Colorado.
Okay, in Colorado.
Colorado. And we ratified the week before shelter in place. So it's probably the 10th of March, something like that.
Okay.
Brand new unit, condo. And I didn't get scared, but I said, you know what? I'm not willing to pay that price. So, Mr. Seller, I've got a couple contingencies here. I can use those to get out. If you want to take a 10% reduction, we'll close. And the seller said no. Went on to a different complex, upgraded from, let's say, a 7 to a 9 at the exact same price. Mm-hmm. So I spent the same money, but I got a product that's a way better product because I had a seller that needed to sell.
Right. You had a seller that took your advice as a seller.
Well, yeah. I mean, as a buyer, I had no urgency. This isn't my home, right? And so I can be patient. And I don't think we have that school gun to people's heads for August that, I got to have a house and get my kid in the right school district, because we're not sure schools are going to open in August. And so buyers may not have the same urgency that sellers could have.
Right. So in summation here, so what I'm hearing you say is, if I'm going to be comfortable comfortable being uncomfortable, one, have a definitive plan with what I want to do. What's my strategy? What's my game plan? Use as much impartial data as I can, facts, to really drive, and understand that finishing is the win, and in that arc, that each finish is that win, and that becomes momentum. And I guess the additional one would be to find what success is for you.
For sure. And I have a funny story for you that I put in one of my emails, but it's much better when you say it out loud, is that if you have a plan and you're going to go execute it, you're way better off. The plan itself is important. And about 15 years ago, maybe 20, a guy younger than I came to my office and said, hey, I'm 5 years into my 10 10-year plan, and I need some advice as to how I should course correct it. And I thought for a minute, and I said, I think you're in the wrong office, because I'm 20 years into my 5-year plan. And, you know, it's like, if just having the plan is important, right? You may not finish on time, but having the plan and getting there is important.
Yeah, yeah. And learning from our mistakes. We learn. God, if I knew this as a 12-year-old kid, that it's okay to make mistakes because I'm going to be that much further ahead because I took the shot and made the mistake. My life, who knows where my life would be? I'm happy it's where it is right now. But you know, God, how do we impart that to kids? That's one of my great passions. But hey. Mark, thank you so much. For those of you tuning in, thank you so much. Air claps for Mark. And this will be, if you want to hear this again, or if you want to share it with someone, it'll be on my YouTube channel tomorrow. Negotiate this. So again, to each and everyone, stay safe. And Mark, God bless you, my friend. I love you.
Thank you, partner.
Yep, you got it. Bye.